Hello everyone, Pulse here and welcome to a very special episode of Delving Deep ESO. Now as the title reads, NDA is gone. It is finally dead. For goodness sake, I couldn't wait for that to happen. So now I and many others out there can talk about their Elder Scrolls Online experiences. So it's a really special day indeed. I'm really excited to start my uncensored ESO coverage, as it were. Now, I don't have closed beta access, so I can't show you like live commentary or anything like that, but I did have some foresight, and I figured that NDA would get dropped, especially in the wave of press negativity. I figured, you know what, if it doesn't get dropped, I'll have the footage anyway. So I did take a good probably hour and a half or so, hour 45 minutes worth of footage, if not more. So there's going to be some footage that's of me playing it. Granted, it's low level stuff, but it's new gameplay that hasn't been shown. So that will be in the background of my commentary today. Now, this first video is going to be a basic overview of my experience with the most recent beta event in particular. And then there's going to be quite a few videos to come in the near future that are going to go into more detail, mostly on things that I find either particularly interesting with the systems or particularly concerning or questionable. There'll be some more videos in the future, so you'll get to see more gameplay. But again, this one is going to be my most recent beta impressions. So what did I think of it? Actually, it was a lot of fun. It really was, and it made me wish I didn't have to work the weekend. It really did. I went into this most recent beta event, again, with the hunch that NDA would be dropped. So I decided to start a brand new character, a Templar to be specific, Breton Templar. And then as I went through the quests and through my journey, I did something kind of suboptimal, I'll say, by opting to choose different weapon types throughout my adventure here. Again, not very optimal in terms of like MMO style, but that's a very test thing to do. So in this footage that you see going on now, it should be me still using a dual wielding skill line, whereas later on, and I think before this as well, I used a staff, and I definitely have some first person combat and some more footage I have of using a two-handed sword, stuff like that. So you'll see dual wielding going on right now, but don't worry, there's a lot more to come for footage. Now, for the actual play experience I had, the beginning stuff, it's pretty much what everyone in the press had to say, honestly. It's a bit boring, it's a bit unoriginal, but to be completely honest with you guys, I had zero expectation that Zenimax was going to be able to pull off something miracle as far as I'm concerned, because MMOs have been plagued with the slow start for ages, and as far as I can tell, it's just this real difficult thing to make it so that you have a very long-term MMORPG style in terms of progression, while also making the low levels gratifying and engaging, like right off the bat. This is something that's been a problem for so long. I just really had no expectation for Zenimax to try and fix it. I really didn't. So I went into this kind of prepared. Now again, I don't condone this like shitty start that MMOs just typically have, and that MMO players are really like prepared for. I definitely think that that's something that needs to be changed in the future, but again, I was prepared for the slow start. Now, once you get past the level 5 area, I would say, by that point, you're getting into the game, and you get this sense of growth that starts to take place. You definitely get that feeling that this is a proper RPG, and it makes you want to keep playing, in particular in the way that MMOs do, where you want to keep leveling up the skills and getting your next spell or your next like passive upgrade. And then it also had me going to like learn the next story twist, or at the very least see how the quest kind of intertwined and took you on their own little path. It was pretty cool. Now, the time that it takes to travel between quests, which is one of the big concerns that the press had to talk about, that definitely was an issue in the latest beta, but I definitely don't think it's as bad as most people seem to think it is. It's kind of sluggish in that the movement just goes by very slow when you're running from place to place, but I really do think that this was a deliberate design decision to make the world feel as big as it really is, as well as provide test-style distractions, because anyone that played a prior test game before will be able to tell you that, well, maybe your main quest is like way over here in this other city, but you'll get distracted by caves and all kinds of stupid stuff on the way, and maybe they're not integral to your actual story, but they are a major part of the adventure itself. So I really didn't find that the travel was too bad. It took a long time, and there were definitely some times where I was like, man, this is taking a little bit too long. I don't think it's that big of a concern, honestly, especially considering that you can get a horse relatively early if you save your money, which we'll talk about a little bit later why it's important for that. And also the dark anchors, which sadly during my play sessions, I have yet to be able to do one from start to finish. Either they bug out like right at the beginning or they just don't work at all. Now they look really cool, I have to say. The chains coming down from the sky and linking up to what is our plane of existence, Nern, it really looks badass. I really want to do one super bad, but they were pretty well broken across the board. There's a couple articles going around where they've had prior experience with them, but nothing from the most recent beta that I can tell. Now, the only real time that I did find the running to be a super pain in the ass, to the point that I made note of it, was doing a couple quest chains that had you run from one town to another and like back and forth style that didn't have way shrines anywhere in the vicinity. This only happened to me maybe once or twice, and I can definitely think of one time where it was mostly my own fault for going about the quests in a very inefficient manner, and instead of doing what is like a very efficient style of doing all the quests in an area before moving on or before driving the story forward, that was definitely one of the issues I found. Is if you mess up, you definitely get that. So maybe that's where a lot of the concerns are, is people going in and doing very, I don't know, non-MMO style questing, I guess, which I guess would be a negative for people who are coming from a non-MMO background. But I found that if you go about the quests in a very kind of logical way, you don't really have that issue of running being a thing. It really didn't seem to bother me that much. Now, back to the Wayshrine thing before I forget them, and it kind of ties into the money thing, is that they are very expensive to use if you are using them all the time. I mean, if you go from Wayshrine to Wayshrine, the porting to one another, it's totally free. But if you're wanting to teleport everywhere all the time without running, or even just on the occasion want to be able to use it to get out of an area without running that little bit of time, you're going to spend some change. Definitely, you're going to have to pony up some cash. So that is definitely something that people need to keep in mind. This is something that Guild Wars 2 kind of stressed to me pretty hard, so I guess that's why it left an impression, is do not teleport just because you can. Run a couple feet and save a bunch of money, and you'll be able to buy your horse earlier. That is definitely the lesson I learned in this. Now, one last thing I wanted to talk about in this pretty brief and undetailed impressions video is that the game isn't perfect. It definitely isn't perfect. There's a lot of things I want to talk about that I would consider questionable or negative, but in general, the game is actually a lot of fun, and there's a lot going for it that will make it interesting and engaging for a long time. I mean, the skill system is pretty damn brilliant, honestly. It really, really is nice and refreshing compared to previous MMO experiences. The voice acting and in general the storylines are good. The quests themselves maybe not are all that great, especially in the beginning stuff, but the top-notch voice acting and the storyline in general is actually pretty good. The combat is fun and oftentimes very hectic, but in a way that really gets your adrenaline pumping and makes you want to fight more. And most importantly is that once you suffer the typical MMO start, it definitely becomes a pretty engaging experience, and depending on your preferences here, you'll be satisfied with the single player elements and the group elements, honestly. Now this is something I stressed concern about like a while ago, was that this game isn't going to be able to meld them perfectly together, and that's definitely true. The thing is, I found that if you're by yourself, and this was really noticeable during some of the later or earlier betas rather, because people weren't so prevalent, is that you would be on a very single player style adventure, and it definitely felt like a typical test kind of experience. And then in the most recent one in particular, I had a lot more group experiences, and they were pretty damn awesome. I mean, as an MMO guy, I definitely found the group stuff to be one of the most fun things I've done in a while, so that was really, really cool. They don't gel perfectly, both of these experiences, they definitely don't, but when they work, it is really damn fun. It really is. I mean, one of the big examples I would like to say that I enjoyed most was running through like a public dungeon, or running through even just an open area full of quests. In fact, the time that I used the two-handed sword and was running around killing mobs, and there was like a time travel-y kind of quest I was doing, there were a lot of people doing the quests there, and just in general interacting in the world. A lot of fun. It was way fun. And I mean, that's just one high point, and there's a lot to be had in the game, that is for sure. But to keep this as brief as possible, this is gonna pretty much wrap it up for my brief first impressions of sorts. I think it's good. I actually do think it's good. I've had a lot of negative things to say about the game in the past, and there's definitely some things that concern me, which I'll talk about in later videos. But for the most part, I think this game has a good chance of actually surviving. I don't know if it's going to say submodel, just because of the world we live in now. It's very tough to accomplish that kind of thing, just because the market has shifted so much since WoW took the MMO world by storm. But there's a lot going for this. In particular, I want to talk about some of the phasing stuff going forward, skill lines, and more importantly, like how morphing works and how that affects the way you make your character, first person versus third person, and my experiences with that. And there's so much more to talk about. PvP stuff. There's a lot to talk about, honestly. But you'll have to stay tuned to get some more ESO goodness talking about those kinds of things. So thanks so much for watching, guys and gals, and I will see you on the next one. Bye.